So I'm a little bit late today, but I'm talking about bloating and what causes it and things that we can do to try and improve bloating. So apologies if I've got a suction mark on my face still, because I've been scuba diving this morning, which is why it's a bit late. But anyhow, I know most of us at some point in our lives are going to struggle with bloating. And actually it can be really uncomfortable. I'm not talking about like a flabby belly, I'm talking about that really distended feeling. And if you've been pregnant and your baby turns inside of you, it's that kind of sensation I'm talking about. It's that really strong, hard, pushing bloating that we're referring to today. So there are several causes. A lot of people struggle with IBS, diverticulitis, colitis, those sorts of things. Those will all cause bloating because of the inflammation within the gut system itself. When you eat too much salt, that causes bloating. PMS can cause bloating. Eating various foods that you might have sensitivities to can cause bloating. Gluten can cause bloating. I suppose that falls under sensitivities, but you will be amazed the amount of gluten that's put into processed foods. And gluten is not good for the majority of us. Most of us have some kind of a sensitivity. Dairy, of course, a lot of us are lactose intolerant. There are some people out there that say we are all lactose intolerant. It's just varying degrees. So it's up to you what you think about that one. Chewing gum actually can make us bloat. So there's something out there called SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and I'll go into that in a little minute as well. So there are a few things. Dehydration even can make us bloat. So I'm just going to sort of start with the top ones, work my way through and just give you a few sort of healthy alternatives and also explain briefly why we might get bloating. So I'll just start with dehydration for a start. The reason we can bloat when we're dehydrated is because the body thinks it needs to hang on to more fluid. So of course it makes us retain more water. And it's a little bit when you deprive yourselves of calories and your metabolism slows down, and so your body it almost goes into like a survival mode. So it thinks, when you eat, I'm going to grab all the calories I can, I'm going to keep everything that I can. I'm going to hang on to as much of it as I can do. And the same happens with water. So if you allow yourself to get dehydrated regularly, your body will hang on to more fluid, which will cause bloating, specifically around the abdomen. Salt causes us to hold on to more water. It just does. It absorbs water. So if you eat a lot of processed foods, salty foods, you are likely to have abdominal bloating because, again, it makes us hang on to more water. Processed foods are a nightmare because they're generally filled with gluten, which a lot of us have intolerances against. And I think the reason they put gluten in it is to try and make it more palatable, to feel better, to have a better texture in our mouths. Not entirely sure. I don't really eat many processed foods. But yeah, processed foods do. And of course, when you're eating a processed food, it's not a natural food that the body can assimilate. So it naturally creates inflammation within the digestive system. So same with sugar. If you've got to eat sugar that's a natural sugar, something like a raw honey, for instance, if you don't have an allergy and if you're not vegan. That will be a lot better for you than artificial sugars. Which brings me on to sorbitol and xylitol. If you have dogs, I'm not entirely sure about cats, but certainly I know xylitol is absolutely fatal to dogs, even if it's in just a tiny amount. And a lot of us who chew gum, a lot of chewing gums have xylitol in them, so just watch out for that. But things like xylitol, sorbitol, they can make us bloat in the belly area too. Also, just the process of chewing gum. Some people chew gum with their mouth open, and so they're swallowing air. That can also make you bloat. So just be aware of that. Also, the digestive system itself is preparing itself for food. And because you're just chewing, there's no food going down into the system. And so that, our body's thinking, where's the food? And there isn't any food. And so that can cause bloating too. PMS can cause bloating. The reason for that is because as we get sort of within 10 days to a week of when our period is due to start, the progesterone levels naturally start to fall off, and that can cause the body to hang on to more fluid too. Various foods can make us bloat. Now, I found this quite interesting. I had no idea that rice, I always thought rice was really healthy, particularly things like red rice, wild rice, brown rice. And they're a lot healthier than white rice, that's for sure. And they're a lot healthier than a lot of other things that you could eat. But there's an amazing amount of us that have intolerances to rice. And until I started actually tracking my food, I hadn't appreciated quite how much rice makes me bloat. Things like chickpeas, I mean, I love them, but I can't eat them without getting gassy. Adzuki beans are not quite so bad. If you love beans and you eat beans regularly, then pinto beans and black beans are less stressful on the digestive system. So those are ones to go for if you love your beans, but you do find that you bloat with beans. It's a real bummer. I've tried everything with chickpeas. I've tried using asafoetida. I've tried kombu, the Japanese seaweed. I've tried soaking, changing the water for about 6 times. I've tried letting them sprout, so like they become a sprouted legume. And I still can't eat them without getting gas. So it's just one of those things. I know that if I'm going to eat beans, I'm going to be pretty gassy afterwards. So even with lentils, it's the same thing. So unfortunately, my body doesn't respond ever so well to those sorts of things. Yours may be better. But again, it's just worth remembering that if bloating is an issue for you, then you might want to reduce the amount of beans that you're eating, and eat them with other foods as well. So it's not just so, if you've got a real concentration of beans, that can make it more pronounced, your bloating. Any sort of allergies and intolerances, so dairy, gluten, you're going to set off that inflammation within the gut. And we've got inside our intestines, we've got these tiny little villi, we've got millions of them. Our small intestine is about 20 feet long. And so when you think, if you're eating something that inflames those little villi, that is one heck of an inflammation when you consider we've got 20 foot of small intestine. So just bear that in mind as well. Cruciferous vegetables can cause a lot of us to bloat, especially if you eat them raw. So things like Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy, collard greens, those sorts of things can also make you bloat. So ideally we should all be eating vegetables around about 3 times a day. If you find you do bloat, then eat them maybe steam them or put them in a slow cooker or a crock pot, and just cook them slowly. So you're not zapping all the goodness out of them, but you're still getting the benefit of eating food that has got high fiber in it, which is what we need. If we don't eat enough fiber, often we get stopped up, so you get constipated, and of course that causes bloating because the food that should have passed through our bowel is still sitting there and essentially putrefying, which is what causes more gas. So make sure you're eating a good amount of fiber regularly, and also drinking loads and loads of water. If you don't know already, and I say this in about every single one of my lives, to work out the amount of water that you need to drink, weigh yourself in pounds, divide the result by 2, and that's the amount of fluid ounces of water you should be drinking. So if you weigh 140 pounds, you need to be drinking about 70 fluid ounces of water a day. If you live in a hot climate, if you're menopausal, if you exert yourself a lot with your job, or you do heavy workouts, you're probably going to want to drink a bit more than that as well. So bear that in mind. Now, going on to SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This is a condition, and a lot of people get wrongly diagnosed with something like IBS rather than SIBO. But essentially, it's when healthy bacteria from our bowel, so the colon, get backed up into the small intestine, where really that bacteria shouldn't be there, and that can cause inflammation. Now, probiotics are good for us, but there is a bit of an asterisk around probiotics. For somebody with SIBO, probiotics might not be the best thing, because you might actually be feeding the bacteria in the small intestine that shouldn't be there. So if you've got SIBO, you really want to be careful about whether you eat probiotics at all. If you eat a really healthy diet, in any case, maybe a low FODMAP diet, you probably aren't going to need probiotics. And it's just worth remembering that you might actually set off a chain of reactions that is not positive for your internal gut flora if you have SIBO and eat probiotics. But for the majority of us, probiotics are actually really, really healthy. They help with our gut biome, so that the sort of the health of our gut flora. And we've all got bad bacteria, we've all got good bacteria, and we want to be feeding the good bacteria, because our gut is such an important part of our overall immunity, of our own overall immune system. 90% of serotonin, our feel-good hormones, are created in our gut. So we really want to make sure we have good gut health. And probiotics help us establish that. But the scary thing is that probiotics are obviously, they're not a medical ingredient, they are a food source, which essentially means they're not regulated. And there's a lot of probiotics on the market that are being sold at a heck of a lot of cost, but they don't survive the gastric juices of the stomach. So they're completely useless. So you really need to be choosy with your probiotics. The one that I drink daily is called Bacillus Coagulans. I'll put it in the notes underneath this, so that you know how to spell it if you want to find it. That's what I drink daily. It does survive the trip through the gastric juices, and it gets to the colon, which is where we want it to be, and it does all the good work that it's supposed to do. But it's a bit like the marketing in supermarkets. They are trying to push products that they say are healthy, and they are not. You've got to become a real sleuth for your own health overall and start reading labels and working out what is a high sugar content, what is a low fiber content. And in fact, what I think I would do is I'll do a really specific Wellness Wednesday going into food labels. So I can sort of give you the balance of things that you should be looking for. So how much fiber ideally should it have? How much sugar, of which, carbohydrates, of which sugar should it be? Things that end in OSE or OZE, OZes, the O's, so sucralose, fructose, maltose, dextrose, those sorts of things, they're hidden sugars. And essentially you don't want to be eating those, because again, they're going to cause more inflammation inside your gut, which again can cause bloating, and it compromises the immune system, and it puts the body under stress. And when the body's under stress, we release cortisol, which makes us hang on to fat around our belly. So as well as being bloated, we're actually hanging on to fat cells around our belly. So it's just bad. So avoid artificial sweeteners ideally. Increase the amount of fiber that you're eating daily. If you don't eat much fiber already, then what I would recommend, rather than say, right, I'm going to pile the fiber in, it might actually bung you up a bit to begin with while your body just adjusts. So just add it gradually, and make sure you're drinking loads of water when you're doing it, so that you don't get constipated. I know fiber helps keep us moving, but it's an insoluble carbohydrate, and if you've got too much of it in your system and your system isn't used to it, it might actually bung you up a bit more. So just be aware of that too. Now, things like spices and herbs are brilliant for helping with bloating. So things like ginger, cardamom is part of the ginger family, cumin, coriander seed, coriander leaf. There are loads and loads of them. Garlic and onion. Some people respond really well to them, some people don't respond so well to them. So again, it's about sort of tracking what works for you best. But if you love curries, turmeric again is another one. It's anti-inflammatory, it's really good. Cumin, I think I said cumin. If you love curries and you eat them regularly, you're probably going to be pretty well sorted. If you don't like spicy food, then maybe make a tea. So soak some ginger root with perhaps some fresh lemon in, and make a tea out of that. Cardamom tea is lovely. So soak some cardamom pods, maybe 4 per cup, in hot water. That's really refreshing, ever so good for your digestive system. Herbs, things like dill, peppermint. There are so many and I've forgotten them. Dill, peppermint. I can't remember them. Chamomile is really soothing. Valerian. Lavender as an essential oil, peppermint essential oil, Rosemary is a good herb. Fennel is excellent herb for digestive issues. So you can either make teas out of these, or you can even get essential oils and add them to a little bit of almond oil or grapeseed oil, something like that. And you can even massage your belly. So to massage to get rid of belly bloat, I am a qualified sports massage therapist, so I do know what I'm talking about, and I do quite a bit of this in hospice because people who have cancer treatment often end up getting constipated. So you want to make sure that you go round. So when you're looking at your belly, you're going round in a clockwise direction, because that's the way the gut works. So clockwise direction, nice sort of slow, deep movements. And then you want to, so say if this is your belly, you want to then start going around in little circles. So mini circles, again in an anti-clockwise direction. And that, but just fairly gently, and then again big smooth sweeps in an anti-clockwise direction. And that will help free up any blockages that you might have. If you've been blocked up for over a week, I would go and see a doctor, because you don't want stuff sitting there that long. It's not going to be good for you. And it might be, it might be that there's an obstruction, which you may need to get cleared. I'm a proponent of DIY enemas once a month or so. And I think if you've got really blocked up, go and have a colonic irrigation, because it's done under pressure. It's all automated, so don't feel embarrassed about it. It might just be what you need to clear yourself out to then start healthy routines and keep up with the, healthier lifestyle once you've managed to get rid of that blockage. But if you've not gone to the toilet for over sort of 7 days, 10 days, I would certainly see your doctor and see what they recommend for you. They might just give you a suppository to just help get things moving, because the problem is the longer it's in our bowel, water gets drawn out of it and it just gets drier and harder and more compacted. So and it's not comfortable, and it's also not good for you. So keep drinking water. Add spices to your food. If you like curries, maybe up the amount of curries you have. Eat vegetables, but if you suffer with bloating, maybe lightly cook the cruciferous vegetables. Be aware of how grains affect you. Another marketing ploy that supermarkets come out with is they talk about healthy vegetable oils. You don't get oil out of vegetables, not at all. They're seeds, or they're grains, or they're legumes. Soybeans is a legume. Canola oil, rapeseed oil is what we call it here in the UK. That's a seed. Sunflower, seed. It's not a vegetable. So it's not really vegetable oil. It's processed seeds and grains, which essentially can make you bloat. They're not good. They're inflammatory. So healthy oils are like olive oil and coconut oil. And then healthy flours, because a lot of us obviously have gluten intolerances, things like almond flour, coconut flour. I use coconut flour loads. It also helps you ditch your carbohydrates a little bit, because we all eat way more carbohydrates than we should do. Cassava flour is another healthy flour. You might need to adjust your ingredients a little bit if you're baking with them, but you can Google that and work out what the adjustments need to be, but those will be healthier alternatives for you. So I hope that's helped. I just wanted to give you sort of literally go over what causes bloating and give you some healthy, easy to implement strategies that will help you reduce the bloating. And one of the most important things I would say is track your food. Keep a food diary for 2 weeks. Yes, it can be a bit dull and a bit boring and a bit tedious. However, it will give you a really good indication of what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So just literally write every day what you have for your breakfast, lunch, dinner, any snacks you've had, how much water you've drunk. And remember, things like tea and coffee and alcohol will dehydrate you. So just be aware of that. And then either later that day, if you're starting to feel bloated, or the following morning you're feeling bloated, have a look back and see what you ate that could be causing the problem. You can either highlight it or just, make a note that you were bloated, and you will see a pattern form. That's how I found out about rice with me. And it's obvious with the chickpeas. It's definitely obvious. But with rice, I didn't know. So, and cruciferous vegetables to a degree, because I love raw vegetables, but they make me gassy as well. So my intestines are probably a little bit more sensitive than I thought they were. But I will put a little bit of a summary underneath the video in any case, so you've got all the sort of the key points to refer to. And if obviously if you've got SIBO, talk to your physician about whether you should be eating probiotics at all, because you probably should not. So that's it. That's what I have for you this week. If you've got anything you would like me to add, a topic you'd like me to cover specifically with regards to health and wellness, please leave me comments or send me a private message, and I'll make sure to include that in my Wellness Wednesdays, and I'll make sure to tag your name in it when I'm preparing it for next time. Then you'll know that that I'm covering that particular topic on that week. Okay, so have a great day, you guys. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that was helpful. So I will see you again soon.